What's up, everyone? Welcome to the September SAT score release stream. The scores must the most people is what I'm trying to say. Most people should have gotten their scores by now in the last 12 hours. So welcome to the stream, and let me know if you're here. I'm going to quickly send the chat so that I can kind of frame the questions. Give me a sec. Starting Q&A. All right, and there is chat. Let me make sure I set this up correctly. Yeah, I think we're good in terms of setup. Audio is good. Video is unfortunately populated with me, but it's good. And this thing, that's kind of weird. All right. All right, there we go. I thought I already turned that off before starting, but this thing like automatically turns on every time. All right, so let me know if you're here. I'm almost ready. Okay, and if you're not here, or if no one's gonna chat, then I'm gonna creep Reddit. So with the September SAT, most of my students who struggled on the August, they kind of got back into the vibe, and I think all of my students got their target score on the September if they didn't get it on the August. So it seems like it went well for my kids at least. But let me know how you guys did. Wow, this person did really well. Okay. Again, what was your target score? What's up, Jeremy? Welcome to the stream. Good to see you again. Okay, yeah, full bars and everything doesn't really mean a lot because, you could get two questions wrong on each section and still have full bars. So it doesn't mean a lot by itself. When you're full bars, it's like you can't really rely on the College Board's analytics. You have to rely on your self analytics. So the relevant question and for somebody who is aiming at 800, and to me it doesn't sound like the unless this is your first time ever taking the SAT. Actually, can you confirm that? New user, this is your first time ever taking the SAT, and you never really did a lot of prep for it. True or false? Or you can add some detail if you want. It's your first time ever taking the SAT. You didn't really prepare for it. 800, I think you might be downplaying how hard an 800 is. So let me just start there. If you got a 4 on the AP Lang and you studied grammar, I think right now you actually should be targeting a consistent 750. And depending on how much time you have to actually study or whatnot, you might be surprised at how hard it is to consistently even hit 750. So I don't feel comfortable giving tips about how to get an 800 to somebody who is not consistently hitting 750 because it's just a different beast. It's a different beast getting the last 50 points. A lot, like I would say for every 100 students that are stuck between 700 and 750, you'll have like, I don't know, I don't even know statistically what the numbers actually say, but my sort of intuition says like for every 100 students that are stuck between 700 trying to consistently hit 750, you'll have 2 students, 3 students who are somewhere above 750 trying to hit consistently like 790 or 800. Like it's just a different world. So I think the goal for you, if this is your second time, I think the goal for you, you should actually lower your goal right now. And you should give yourself the opportunity to sacrifice a couple questions. So in module two, according to your score report, you're actually getting 2 questions-ish, plus or minus 1, wrong on every single section. That is not what should be happening, right? What should be happening is you're getting 2 or 3 questions wrong in information ideas, maybe 1 question wrong in craft and structure, and everything else should be perfect, right? And when it comes to your bars, it looks the exact same way. You'll still have full bars, except maybe 1 bar missing on information ideas. So then if you compare your actual performance to the performance you should be aiming at, according to the bars, I'm telling you, you should be aiming at something that gives you fewer bars because you're going to lose 1 bar on the information ideas, right? So get better because you're doing, well, actually, it's kind of debatable, but because the way they do it is very fuzzy, but you actually need to be willing to sacrifice on some of the harder questions so that you can actually clean up all the easy and moderate difficulty questions, which you're not doing right now, as far as I can tell. And the reason you're not doing it is probably because you're aiming too high, and so you're just trying to equally distribute your time across every single question instead of intentionally sacrificing some of the hardest questions. New user, I'm gonna stop there for you for now, but let me know what your response is to that. Let me know if that's helpful, if that's a helpful way of reframing your thoughts. Avika, yeah, actually, you're not the only one, Avika, that thought that. There were multiple people who thought that the September was easier than like the August, at least, because there were a lot of students who took both. They took the August and they were like, holy crap. And then they took the September and they felt it was easier. I do think a little bit of that is psychological in the sense that usually for the August, kids will be spending 1 or 2, sometimes 3 months of like concentrated prep for the SAT, and then I'll tell you, it's not purely psychological. There's some other things going on behind the scene, but at least in terms of the psychology, they'll spend like a couple months leading up to the August SAT, and it's like they put it on a pedestal. And I keep saying, just treat it like a practice test. But no matter what, psychologically, they'll still put it on a pedestal, like they've like built up for this moment, and then they don't do as well as they wanted, so they're disappointed. And then when they take the September SAT, they go in a little bit more. They're already busy with school, so they go in a little bit more kind of relaxed and having a better framing around it. So I think some of it is definitely psychological, but it's also true that I don't know. I didn't see the questions, but it's also true that the College Board knows that the August is the one where every person in Asia, every person in India and China and Singapore and Korea, every person in Asia has been preparing for it. So that's when sometimes you'll see the College Board throw in question, like kind of like some of the experimental questions from the previous year. They'll use that and then kind of debut the official versions and stuff. And then kids will get confused because they over optimize for certain patterns and they are not ready for kind of like surprise question types or whatever. So yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of that also going on. I don't know. It's the more important thing though for you is, hey, if you did better, you did better. So good job. Republic, you were in my Discord, broke 1500s. Say thanks. Also to debrief. And just continuing, if the reading score is around 720 and you've increased by 200 points over 1 year, that's really hard to say. I mean, if you went from 520 to 720, I mean, that's just, first of all, that's fucking impressive. Let's just start there. So good job. That is huge. Now, do you specifically mean 520 to 720, or do you mean 200 including the math? Because that changes things. Like maybe you improved 120 points in math and then 80 points in reading. But if you got actually 200 points from 520 to 720, that's insane. That's a huge jump. Obviously, part of it is probably because when you first took the SAT, you probably went in pretty unserious. So maybe your true score at that moment should have been something like 580, but then you didn't even prep, so maybe you got a 520. I don't know. But still, huge improvement. Amazing. Now, with that out of the way, I will say, do I think you've maxed out? I don't know, actually. But the easiest way, like a quick check I would ask is, are you generally a straight A student? And do you generally find that compared to the people around you, do you find that you learn stuff faster than other people? And do you generally find that you enjoy hard subjects more than other people? Because if you say true to all of the above, it could mean that intellectually your capacity is higher than your current score, and you haven't fully mined it for the best possible score. Flip side, do you find that generally have you done like hundreds of hours of studying for the SAT? Have you done like multiple dozens of practice tests for the SAT? Did you have to grind out, especially starting from like 650 to 720? Did you have to grind out every increase? Was the SAT generally pretty painful for you and unenjoyable for you? If that's the case, if you say true to all of the above, I would say, yeah, you probably did max out. I mean, it's not going to get easier from 720 to 800. So if it was really painful getting that 720, then yeah, I mean, probably you did max out. But and the truth might lies somewhere in between, where maybe you have, maybe you still have 20 points left in you, maybe you still have 30 points left in you, but then it would require something like 20, 30, 50 hours of work. And it's like, it's not even guaranteed, right? It's like, is it worth 20, 30, 50 hours of work to get a 20-point increase, 30-point increase? And that's where we fall into like the gray area, where it kind of depends on your other extracurriculars. Like, are you like maybe those 20, 30, 50 hours you could be spending on like your leadership positions in, I don't know, in varsity athletics or drama or whatever, right? I mean, maybe there's other things that are more important than the chance of getting a higher score. Maybe it actually kind of matters for your target school. Like, that's the gray area, where you haven't fully maxed out. It also wasn't a cakewalk. So like you're not guaranteed a score increase. It's just you might get a score increase because you kind of deserve a somewhat better score, but it will take some effort, right? And that's probably where most people stand. And you just have to be like, is it worth the time? And if it is worth the time, yeah, I guess you're falling, actually, out of the two profiles, Republic, I gave you two profiles. I said, are you generally finding it easy, light, enjoyable, and also are you generally really strong academically and intellectually compared to your peers? It kind of sounds like maybe you're leaning more on that side, in which case, hey, why not spend 10 more hours, 15, 20 more hours, or whatever more hours studying for the SAT and then juicing like, 30, 40 points, or maybe combined 50 points reading, writing, and math. There's no one black and white answer. It's kind of like there's gradations in between. I feel like you're kind of more on the former profile, so maybe it's worth spending a little bit more time and effort on it. But again, ultimately, the decision is yours, and it's based on your situation and your needs. Let's go back to Avika. Is October going to be harder? That's not something we can really know. But I will say October is a pretty popular test date. So what happens is you do get a lot more engagement farming in October. So because you get more engagement farming, you will get more negative news. So people will say it's harder. They will say it. That does not mean it's actually harder. It just means that the perception online is that it could be harder. And that's why that's why you will actually oftentimes hear, sometimes in like these like college prep blogs, right? They'll say that, August is harder and October is harder. It's not necessarily the case. It's just that October, there's a lot more emotions involved. Why are there more emotions involved? It's because it's the final opportunity for the early, nowadays with early action and decision having like multiple stages, now I kind of forget where the final opportunity is. But anyway, October is the final opportunity for a lot of the earlies. So there's more seniors who are more stressed out about it. And yeah, you get a lot of like backwash there, okay, from all the anxiety of all the other kids your age around the world who are stressed out, okay? So that's a big part of it. That doesn't also mean that it's going to be easier, right? It just means that it just is, right? And the question is, are you equipped with the tools to beat the test, right? To beat your questions in the test, in a consistent manner, no matter how difficult. Like, what if I decided to throw in for funsies, let's say I'm College Board, for funsies, what if I decided to throw in, a couple extra low-level questions, like, 500 and 600 level questions? Well, that means I'm going to have to sacrifice a couple 700, 750 level questions, right? What that means then is that overall, the modules will feel easier, okay? And overall, you'll feel less stressed about the time management. But that also means that particular test will be particularly sensitive about your performance because there's fewer data points in the 700 range. And because there's fewer data points in the 700 range, every single one of those questions will count. And so basically, how meticulous are you, right? When you go back and defend those answer choices, like how 100% are you? Because a single mistake now is going to swing your points much more than a single mistake in a harder test, right? Because there's just fewer data points there in that range, at least. So, do you have a test-taking approach that can adapt to that? Most people do have a test-taking approach that can adapt easier. And the flip side, what if I just add a couple extra 700 range questions into my test, and pull out a couple 600 and 500 level range questions in my module? Now it's slanted a little bit to the top end. Now I actually have more data points on those questions so that I can kind of suss out the difference between 720 scores versus 730 scores versus 740 scores versus 750 scores. So I can separate them a little clearer on that end. And let's say that you were actually scoring somewhere in the 730 range previously, right? But now you're going to get more challenged at that level because there's more questions at that level, right? And there's more questions at the 770 level and the 780 level and 790 level, right? And there's going to be more questions like that. And are you adaptable enough? Is your approach adaptable enough to be able to recognize that, oh shit, this module's hard. Not all of these questions are really top priority for me. I need to really focus on my questions. I need to get what's mine, right? Are you able to do that? A lot of kids are not able to do this. Okay, they panic. They want to get every single question right. And because they want to get every single question right, no matter how easy or hard the question is, there's no sensitivity, right? They're just always trying to get all the questions right all the time, right? They panic, they rush, and then they start dropping points. They start dropping on the 700 level question and the 670 level question and 650 level question because they're rushing on all the questions. And that's not something like that is something you can control. You can't control how hard the test is, but you can control how you approach those tests. How you approach the questions in the test. So I honestly think it's really just a distraction. Why psych yourself up, right? Why psych yourself out? Sorry, is what I meant to say. Why psych yourself out? Like, oh, October's gonna be harder. Just always assume that the test is always gonna be hard. And once that's your assumption, then you can now come up with strategies to adapt accordingly. Now that is it for Avico for a sec. Let me pause and switch to Magnolia. Is Magnolia still around? It was a long time ago. I'm gonna scroll down to more recent chats, but Magnolia, just if you are still here, just repost. New users said the response was helpful. Focus on more realistic goals from now. 750. I think I kind of already said the direction. I think the direction is to be more intentional about what kind of questions you're going to sacrifice. And this actually is a pretty good seg from the previous conversation with Avika. But basically, there are some questions that are not going to be at your level, right? You're at 710. You're trying to hit 750. There are some questions that are like the 780 level questions. These 790 level questions. Well, not usually more than one, but there are a couple questions that are in like the 780, 790, 800 level range. Those are not your questions, at least not right now, right? You need to at least hit the 750 consistently first. So learn to recognize those questions and then sacrifice them. They're not really yours, right? Get what's yours. and then you go around. And once you are consistently getting 750, then you start stretching for the 770, 780s, right? That's what you're doing. And usually what that means in terms of the bars, usually what that means is that you're intentionally sacrificing some of the information and ideas questions, all right? Because that's usually the hardest for most people. Now, actually, there are some people where that's actually not the hardest. There are kids who are really OP on like science and logical reasoning and logic puzzles and math and stuff, and they're really OP on it. And they're actually weaker on some other areas. But for the vast majority of people, it's information ideas that they need to sacrifice a couple questions are. Maybe one craft and structure question. Especially some of the cross-text questions that are really hard, right? Yeah, but those are the ones you sacrifice, and then you really focus on getting like all the other questions correct with high confidence. All right, so that's my general approach. At least that's my tip for how to shift your approach. Republic Blade is saying his only flaw is craft and structure. Is it better to? I mean, the question is. That one's I have a sort of it can be a little bit tricky how to answer that question. Really, the problem a lot of times is that people keep blaming their vocabulary when the vocabulary is not their problem. You know, a lot of times it's actually their reading that's the problem, or the logical reasoning that's the problem, and the vocabulary. It wouldn't have even mattered if you gave them a dictionary for all the words on the page. They still would have gotten it wrong because they didn't read it correct. Now, is that you? I don't know. Republic, I think you said 1500, but you didn't tell me your actual reading score. So you're above 750. No, you're above 700. So I'm not, that's actually not informative enough for me. I'm not too sure about just memorizing vocabulary being beneficial or being optimal. But it is, on the other hand, always beneficial. You should always be learning vocabulary. And when I was your age, I had flashcards with me all the time. It was everywhere with me, and I was always adding words. And it's not just for the SAT, okay? Just like words. You know, I had some smart friends. When they use a word that I don't know, I write it down, right? When they say gregarious, I write it down, right? When I write it down, I use the word gregarious, you know, in my essays or in my, like kind of jokingly with my friends or whatever, right? Like this would be really stupid, really not creative and really shitty joke, but like, you know, it's like I had a friend named Greg, and I would just say gregarious Greg, because he was a friendly guy. And it's just like, you know, so now the word is stuck with me forever, right? But you just constantly are improving grammar. You should be constantly improving vocabulary, regardless of whether the SAT is there or not. Although the SAT obviously gives you a little bit more motivation. So yes, it's always beneficial. Yes, you should be memorizing vocabulary. Now the question is how much to prioritize it. That part is a little harder for me to answer without knowing more details. Craft and structure, though, almost certainly, if you have a full bar that's missing, and it's almost certainly not just because of the vocabulary. It's not just because of the word and context. It's because you're making some mistakes in word, like hopefully you're not making mistakes on the overall structure question, but sometimes you are. You're sometimes maybe making mistakes on the part function questions where they underline a little part of the passage, and you're probably rushing the cross text questions where they have text 1 and text 2, and you're it's kind of distributed. Now, if this is a repeated pattern, then you probably need to slow down on reading the passage and identifying the transitions in the passage on your own. Let's go to Avika. Avika is saying, I want to skip 3 of the hardest reading questions. That's unrealistic. Well, it's not unrealistic if you are scoring 600, because if you're scoring 600, then you can spend 20 seconds to read the passage, to skim the passage and be like, oh, this is a ridiculous question. Like, I just don't even know where to even begin, right? And be like, I'm going to skip. But when you're at the 700 or 720 level, I mean, 20 seconds is not That's just an artificial number you came up with, and it's just like you can create a strategy to make it kind of work within 20 seconds, but it's not my recommend. That's not a number I came up with. It's just, and you have to figure out how to make that work within 20 seconds. I don't think personally, using at least the vocabulary of my course, of the techniques that I talk about in my course, there's no realistic way for a 700 scorer to only take a couple seconds assessing the difficulty of a question, because you don't know how difficult a question is until you've tried it. Okay? You don't know how difficult a question is until you've tried it. So you actually have to try it. The question is not how to keep it to 20 seconds, okay, and just skip them and recognize it right away. You have to wrestle with it first, and then you realize you're being outplayed, right? So the basically, how do you minimize the amount of time that you waste in confusion, gaslighting yourself into thinking you could win when you clearly cannot win, right? Like, at least you cannot win within time, right? So you just need to minimize that amount of time. And I actually find that it's okay to spend, even on the questions that you intentionally will sacrifice, it's okay to spend up to, like, I mean, this sounds extreme, but yeah, 2 minutes. As long as everything else you're doing it the same way that I actually like teach, and the way that I'm teaching, I'm actually doing it I'm actually watching my kids do it, so I know how it works out. But if you actually follow it all the way through, like 2 minutes, you can spend 2 minutes on a question that you're gonna eventually end up sacrificing and just kind of, guessing 50-50 on, right? And that's okay. That's okay, because 2 minutes is depends on the question. Sometimes some questions don't require the full 2 minutes, but it's enough for you to get an initial prediction down, to at least attempt to match, and then to attempt to defend A and B and C and D. And after you're done with all of that, you're like, well, shit, this is a crazy hard question. Like, this is insane. Like, I couldn't even eliminate one, right? At that point, like, now you are done. Now you're just not going to come back to it at all, because you're like, this is probably one of the 3 questions I'm going to sacrifice. So actually, Avika, and not actually speaking to Avika specifically, because I actually know some background on you, I don't remember if I've talked about this with you before. Let me know if I've already said this before, but when do you move on from a question? On the first pass, at least. When do you move on from a question? You move on from a question when you have defended A once and B once and C once and D once. If you've measured your confidence on each one of those answer choices once, do not go back to B. Do not go back to C. Do not reread. Do not do anything else. You've already read A once, you've already read B once, you've already read C once, you've already read D once, straight through, without comparison. Okay, you've done it straight through. Okay, you've already tried the prediction, so that means you've read the passage, and because of all the defending, you've read the passage like 1.7 times now. You're done. Like, if you can't get an answer yet, you're gonna sacrifice this, at least for now. You're sacrificing it until the end, and then during extra time we can talk about. I actually need to make another. I need to make another lecture for the course on what to do in extra time. But yeah, you're at that point, you're done. Okay, you're done. Move on. Do not defend an answer choice more than once. Okay, and once you're done, you will be surprised if you only let yourself defend the answer choices once. Okay. You will be surprised at how much time you have left over, as long as you are strict about it, okay? Because you're gonna find yourself with a lot of extra time compared to the past. And I literally had a student do this yesterday, actually. Yesterday, my student that I tutored one-on-one just told me how much of a big difference it made when they strictly limited themselves to defending only once, okay? Big difference in his confidence. Republic is saying 720. Oh, no, I think I answered, right? Yeah. My head is melting is saying something. Oh, there we go. 1470 as a sophomore. Hoping for a 1500. Got a 1530. So I can't tell if sophomore is 2 years ago or 1 year ago. I'm guessing it's 1 year ago. So in 1 year, and you were hoping for a 1500. So, oh no, I just got it. You just got this 14.7. Okay, I read this as like past tense. Okay, my bad. Um, uh, yeah, that must be disappointing. It must be disappointing to get 60 points below your practice test score. I have a couple questions. How variable were your practice test scores? Is that just one practice test? Did you have 1530, 1520, 1510, 1520? Or did you have 1450, 1490, 1510, and 1530, right? Like, I kind of want to know the variance between your practice test scores. Because if you're consistently 1530-ish, then 1510 on the real test. Oh, okay. So, okay, I'm gonna chalk that up to sophomore year. It's your first time actually studying for the SAT. So at least on the practice tests, every time you take a practice test and you go back and review it and maybe do a little bit of extra studying, and then you go into the next practice test, it's like you actually know more stuff, right? You literally know more stuff on all those practice tests. So when you go into the next practice test, because you have more knowledge, like you know more about grammar and you know some of the patterns of the questions and stuff, you're actually seeing gains every single time in the practice. And then on the real test, what probably happened is you've never been pressured on time in the same way, even though you might have maybe you might have had the same time limits during practice, but it's just not as tense. It's just not as anxiety inducing. So probably on the real test, it was just about how defined your approach was. And as a sophomore, you probably you were probably pretty happy just improving, because of course you're happy. You're happy because every single time you take the test, your score goes up and up and up. So there's no real reason for you to do anything different, right? So you're probably just happy knowing more stuff, knowing more patterns, knowing more grammar rules, knowing that you really, really, really need to identify the subject of a sentence, right? And like knowing stuff like that, right? And you're just happy with the knowledge that you accrued. And then on the real test, because of the anxiety and the actual pressure of having to do it and for a real score, probably you were not able to activate all that knowledge because of test-taking mechanics. And your test-taking mechanics. Your test-taking mechanics. It's not because of your knowledge, it's because of the way you're approaching the test. You're not actually activating all that knowledge because you're not firing it at the right time, because your test-taking mechanics are probably poorly developed, because you probably don't have a clear process for what to do at any given moment, especially in crisis moments, like what to do when things really aren't going your way. Let me just check time real quickly. Okay, I'm gonna have to end the stream in probably in like the next 15-ish minutes. But so head is melting. Yeah, it's almost certainly, and Avika is saying this right now. Careless mistakes. It's almost certainly the way you're approaching the test. That's interesting. Now that's a twist. New information. So where does that overconfidence come from? Now that is because I don't really know you. I'll tell you where some of the overconfidence comes from across various students. Okay, but I don't really know which one is you. There are some students who are overconfident they have a bad mind-body connection. This is a term from like bodybuilding. But let me try to explain that. Sometimes you're sleepy, you're anxious, you're distracted, and you don't know that you're sleepy, anxious, and distracted because, well, because of reasons actually, but you're not aware that that's the reality. And so what happens is your cognitive performance is degraded, but you believe in it fully instead of kind of hedging against yourself. Okay, so some kids I have, and I actually wonder if it's kind of ADHD correlated, but some kids I have very poor self-awareness of how they're kind of feeling and thinking, how the quality of their thoughts, okay? And so when I ask them, how confident are you that this is the right answer? They'll say hi, and I'll say, okay, read every single word of this answer and just sound it out and make sure that it sounds natural to you, and they'll say it sounds natural, but they're not actually in the moment because their cognitive performance is degraded. They're not actually doing the thing that I'm asking them to do. They're just saying it, and they're kind of telling themselves that they're good, and then they get it wrong. And it's honestly kind of a tricky problem because at that point you kind of are just lying to yourself. So that's one, like, it's hard to fix that. I mean, if you have a habit of doing that, like how do I fix that, you know? So that could be you. And yeah, I mean, if it's not that, then how can you be that overconfident with extra time? You just have a poorly defined process, which is already what I've been talking about, which is the steps that you take to verify that something is correct are incomplete. You know, you're skipping steps. Like earlier you said you reviewed almost all your answers. Like, no, you didn't. Like, you said you viewed again the questions. Yeah, you looked at the questions. Yeah, your eyeballs in time, in space, on that desk, you looked at it for sure. I believe that, but what does review mean, right? Like, does it just mean looking at it, or does it mean more than that? And there's like steps that you should be taking, and you're probably not completing all those steps. Retake the SAT versus the ACT. I'm trying to remember what your score was. I mean, if you've never taken the ACT, why not just take it? It's not like either or. You can just do both, right? You can do both because maybe the ACT works better for you, right? And if you don't know, the best way to know is not by talking to some stranger on YouTube, or by asking 4 strangers on YouTube, or asking 4 strangers on YouTube and double checking 7 blogs on the internet, right? That's not the best way to find out if the ACT is good for you. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, yeah, you can read 7 blogs, 3 super long Reddit posts, and talk to and join and watch 5 YouTube videos, and you still won't know for sure if the ACT is a better fit for you than the SAT. Do you know what the best way to figure it out is? Just do it. Just take a test. Just take an ACT and see how it feels. Yeah, start with a mock test, but just actually do it and then see how it feels. And then if it feels better, then you can pivot. If it feels worse, then you can stick with the SAT. But actually take the test and then make your decision based on that. Avika's trying to meditate. Yeah, I think that's good. It is good to be aware of your thoughts and feelings at any given moment. And that is a hard thing. It's not a skill that no one's just born with that skill. You have to develop that and cultivate that skill. Some people find it easier, some people find it harder. But once you are capable of being aware of your thoughts and feelings at any given moment, you're going to be able to more objectively understand the decisions that you're making in real time during the SAT. Okay? And if you can do that, right? If you can do that, that means you can also control what you do in real time during the SAT. So I do think it's very important. I think it's very useful to be able to do that. To be able to have that self-awareness in real time. Okay? Not easy, but meditation before, I think, will help. And another sort of micro dosing of meditation is just to take a breath whenever you take a deep breath every time you're predicting, right? You get to the question stem, breathe, okay? Because once you get to the question stem, then you have to do some thinking anyway about what the answer should be. And at that moment, if you take a breath, okay, you can kind of slow the process down. Top 20, 1470, depends on your demographics. Are you Asian? Short answer is no. like I think, but that's obviously is, maybe you're not Asian, but maybe you're a trust fund baby, and maybe you're a trust fund baby, but you're applying to a school that needs the money or have legacy. It just depends, right? There's a lot of things. That are involved. I can't really say, yeah, maybe you're low income, like maybe you're from Wyoming, or there's a lot of things that go into this. But if you're like basically an Asian in a real, in a really competitive school district, then 1470 is probably not good enough. So it's just like, you probably need more. But I don't know. Yeah. It's just, I'm not really a college consultant though, so I actually hate college consulting. I'm very, what do you call it? I hate the job, the work of like looking at school trends, and because I don't really care what these schools do. I care about whether you're smarter or not, and whether you're more interesting and more passionate and more engaged socially and politically and environmentally or whatever, or commercially engaged, right? An active contributor to society. That's what I care about. So I don't really care that much. I honestly, college consulting is not my job. I hate the job. I tried it for a little bit and I was like, I hate this stuff. So I'm not really the best person to give you advice on college consulting, on like what kinds of score you need to statistically maximize the chance of you getting into what XYZ school. I could just do a quick Google search right now to find what the median score is for Arabs, but then you're not going to really find a lot. So you should go into, if you really are curious about this, you should go into the Chance Me. You should just go into the Chance Me, threads on Reddit or whatever, and find somebody who has a similar profile to you. But again, that whole thing is also kind of depressing because everyone there is like super OP. And they're not even they're not real people, right? They're like these Reddit freaks. So talk to your school counselor and try to balance out the Reddit freaks by talking to people who are literally in your neighborhood, right? Try to get some real perspective there, and vary up your sources, or just YOLO it like me, man. When I was your age, I was just like, dude, I'm gonna work on me. I'm gonna be really good at what I'm good at, which is like I love studying. So I'm just gonna study the fuck out of everything, and then I'm just gonna get the scores that I need because tests are fun for me. So I'm just gonna do it. And I was low income. I was actually quite poor. My family was quite poor when I was growing up. So besides like school subsidized like tests and stuff, I didn't have a lot of extracurriculars that I could do. Oh, and church and school stuff. I just didn't have a lot of options, in terms of like my parents couldn't drive me around or anything like that. So I just really went ham on school and I really went ham on church, right? And I just did the best that I could for myself. And I was very self-confident. And I was like, you know what? Whoever wants me, they get me. And I want Chicago. I want Columbia. I want people. I want Amherst. And I want Williams. And I want these schools that are very nerdy and that are pretty serious about academics. And that's what I'm going to do. Although Columbia is kind of a joke in retrospect. But whatever. I didn't know. But I want all of these schools. So whoever wants me, that's their problem, right? I'm just gonna focus on what, and then I just got into schools I got into, right? I kind of didn't really, I don't know. I just didn't really think about the numbers that much. I know it's a different era now. I know everyone's thinking about the numbers, but honestly, for your mental health, you could just do what I did, which is focus on yourself, focus on growing, and and let the process take care of itself. Or you could do what most people are doing. Go diversify your sources. Figure out what the Reddit freaks are saying. Take that with a grain of salt because those aren't real people. Then go to your school counselor. But the problem is that a lot of times school counselors are pretty unmotivated and very, like low detail. So take that with a grain of salt. Go talk to, maybe alumni that went to the school that you went to. That would be amazing, actually, if you can. Try to get their stats and how they kind of approached it. If you could do that, that's amazing. If you can't, then you're going to have to kind of triangulate and just figure out, what the resources are around you that are best. But it's definitely not some random dude on YouTube who keeps talking about how he hates the admissions game, because that's not your best resource. The admissions game is stupid. All right. That's it for me. I got to go. I can do a quick lightning rapid fire one-line answers if you have some questions, but otherwise I'm going to have to go. If you are not sure, if you've watched my streams but you're not sure how to actually apply the strategies in a sort of step-by-step manner, right? Because you don't see, like you can see what I'm doing, but you don't really get how to replicate that in your own test taking. I have a course, okay? There have been 42 people that have enrolled so far in this course, and I've gotten a lot of people telling me in the Discord, in the course itself, how they were able to change their approach and get their target score. So if you, in particular, if you're stuck in the 650 to 750 range, okay, I think that my course is actually right now ready for you right now, okay? Now, if you are stuck in the 600 to 700 range or 550 to 650 range, my course isn't quite designed for you yet, but I do have a quick update. In the next 2 months, okay, before the December SAT, in the next 2 months, I will be adding more content. Number one priority is more content on time management. Basically, everything I was talking to Avika about earlier today, plus more. I will be adding that to the course and kind of using actual examples in scenarios of to help you figure out what you should be doing in real time in order to avoid panicking and in order to avoid, like shooting down your score any more than you have to. Okay, so that is number one priority, I would say, is going to be updated in the course. I have like another, for the next week, I actually have some non-course related like admin and business stuff to deal with. But as soon as I have time, that's going to be the first thing that I add to the course. After that, I'll be focusing on probably question breakdown analysis. So there's question type breakdowns. So in the course I have the general strategies, and I show examples of using those general strategies on multiple question types, but I don't have literally just one question type, then the next question type, then the next question type, like literally just talking about every single question type. I don't have that series yet in the course, and I am going to prioritize that. Although actually, now that I think about it, I think I had a couple other priorities. I forgot what that was. I'm going to write this all up actually into a post, but that's on my mind as well. So those are some of the improvements that I'm going to be making to the course in the next couple months. Right now, just to go back to new user, again, the score range that my course is best for is people who are stuck between 650 and 750, right? I've seen many kids, let's say kids who are in the 650-ish range and they've not broken 700 yet. A lot of kids have already said that they were able to break 700 on the real test, okay, from the course just by being able to do that. And we've actually had a good number of people breaking 750 on the real test as well. So obviously less because there's less of those students, but a lot, and those kids are kind of the more silent ones. They're the ones that just sort of like send literally one email and then they never speak again. They never join the live. They never joined the live Q&A and stuff. But those kids will all have also been, I've had verification that some of those kids have gotten their 750s. So I know that the course is working for those kids. And it does come with a weekly Q&A in Discord where you can actually chat with me and do this whole thing, and we can talk about how the techniques actually break down using my vocabulary. The problem with the YouTube streams is that not everyone has my vocabulary. They don't know what I mean when I say predict. The course will give you the vocabulary so we can actually start talking about like real questions in like real time, like 15 seconds. Okay, at 15 seconds, where should you be, right? Like I can't talk about that on YouTube because no one even knows what the vocabulary is for the moves, the move set, the skill set, right? The skill tree, right? We're not like you don't even know what the skill tree is. So how am I supposed to talk to you about like the techniques, like of how to break down a question, right? I can explain the answer, but I can't give you I can't keep developing the vocabulary on YouTube when no one knows the vocabulary. So that's how the course will teach you the vocabulary for understanding the moves, the skill sets that go into every question type. Okay, so but be aware it's not a grammar course. Like you should already know grammar. Like grammar should already be more or less solved if you want to. And now you're plateauing at 650. And then you want to break through to 700 or whatever, right? That is what the course is designed for. So yes, 650, 750. Yeah, so if you're curious about the course, the link is down here somewhere. And also, if you don't have money for the course, you can just swing by in Discord. I still chat in Discord. I try to chat every day that I'm working. So you'll see me there as well. All right, guys. Good luck with the next step in your journey, whatever that is, whether it's the October SAT or early applications or whatever. Congratulations on getting done, getting past the September SAT. And as always, keep on learning, keep on growing. Peace.